Hello, this is Beyond the Stage, a podcast conversation stemming from TEDxJumeirah Beach Park. This podcast will explore the space exploration, future, and where are we going in this field. I'm Mohamed Abduljawad, your host today. I'm a robotist and space engineer, and I'm thrilled to guide this conversation with two esteemed speakers. We have Dr. Aquib Moin with us today, who is an expert in space science with over a decade of experience in astronomy, and Abdullah Al Salmani, who is a satellite engineer and an entrepreneur. Without any further ado, let's dig deep into this field. Dr. Aquib, what is space exploration and how is that affecting us on Earth?
Thank you so much for having me, Mohammed, and thanks for that question, actually. I would believe that when you talk about space exploration, it's a common way of expressing your curiosity about how the universe works, right? It's a very broad term. You can explore how the planets, evolve and how they're orbiting the sun right now, or what is it that a star's life cycle is, and so forth. So in terms of putting a clear definition around it, it's a little bit hard. But I think what I would say is that as soon as you start to think beyond Earth, that's where space exploration starts. And I think the stage we are at is we mostly had space missions around the Earth, which is the LEO, low Earth orbit constellation. And then you go up to the GEO constellation, which is 36,000 kilometers roughly. But I think what I see now is there is more and more inclination towards the what you call planetary exploration. You want to see across the solar system. I mean, we are even sending missions to moons of Jupiter or Saturn, right?
All right.
So we are in an era where we are expanding out and we are going to the, let's say, aiming to go to the edge of the solar system.
I see. So that's from the space exploration as a term itself. Abdullah, why are we doing that? Why are we going to space anyway? And are we getting any benefit of it? Or is it just waste resources to satisfy our ego that, we control the galaxy?
That's an interesting point because we do hear it. Sometimes we hear people discussing whether it's a waste of money, resources, and time to explore space. However, from a personal point of view, and what I believe, the way we can frame it, all three of us, is that basically the journey towards going to explore another planet helps us as human beings get more or gain more insights towards whatever we have in terms of technological development on Earth. It also provides us with experiences and fosters creativity among youth. The younger generation gets inspired by people who explored other planets, people who were astronauts, and then they start exploring their career path. We've seen that.
And I think what I would add to it, Mohammed, just to endorse and expand further what Abdullah said. So when you talk about space exploration, it directly feeds into the advancement of human knowledge, right? And as you were discussing earlier, it is this exponential advancement of human knowledge which has led us to live the lives that we are living today. So eventually, it feeds into this advancement and it feeds into the evolution, in a sense, of technology and scientific understanding of how things work around us. And that is what is leading towards, the progress of mankind as a whole.
All right, interesting. So if we will mention like some specific technology that was developed because of space, do you have anything in mind that just because of space we developed that thing and then we started using it on Earth?
Maybe compactness. It's not a thing itself, but bringing technologies in a compact way. We've seen how big satellites were there back then. Now we have small satellite computers. We have higher computing power than before, even in terms of, because the main challenge is generating power in space. Generating power is mostly done, as we've discussed earlier regarding that, it's mostly done using solar panels. However, you have size limitations. You will spend a lot of money to launch those big satellites. So let's say the computing power in a compact way. That's one of the things. Another thing, maybe it's the propulsion technology that is used, and reusability, or let's say the control systems, whatever control systems that are done or included in rockets, in order to send those satellites and then come back and bring part of that rocket back again. Maybe that also helped human beings.
And a few more specific examples could be, I mean, we all know about medical imaging, right? We got MRIs, we have CT scans. What I would, imagine as a significant contribution of space exploration or the development of space domain is that when you design or when you think about imaging system to observe a part of the universe, for example, right? Or to observe the surface of a planet. So that is a kind of technology that is also helpful in examining the human body. And that is a direct contribution of that science of imaging that was initially done for space missions that came back to the Earth, and it is benefiting humans. Another common example is different types of materials that we use on Earth. Heat-resistant material, because the conditions, as Abdullah will agree with me, the conditions in space are pretty harsh. So we have to design materials, structure in a way that can survive there. A lot of that is coming back to the Earth, which is helping us in our daily lives. I mean, for example, wireless headsets, telemedicine, vertical farming. That was actually started with the, doing that in space in mind. And now we are exploring all of that.
Interesting. So we got medical, we got shrinking technology, we got
Material
science.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. So if I would add to that, actually even food, because of astronauts, they have really specific food that stay for long and in vacuum. So that's also something used on Earth as well. So let's talk about AI. AI is a big thing nowadays. Is it used in space? Abdullah, I know that you did a research on generative AI for remote sensing. Can you tell us about your experience there and what did you do?
Yes, in fact, both of us authored that. And we started with just the idea of using generative AI in terms of developing images or generating images that are hard to capture usually. So we asked, of course, our friends who are in the science field, especially the ones who dived into the remote sensing aspect in order to expand our knowledge about it. And we generated images of those exotic places. When we published that research and we tried, the results were quite good. When we published this research, we found that we went to another one and even a third one. Presenting it at conferences and publishing it. The main thing that we've seen through using AI, one of the challenges that we get is that we have, let's say, a specified amount of time to communicate with the satellite. So we have the ground station communication period, which is somehow in the low Earth orbit is around 10 minutes at a maximum. It ranges from 6 to 10. And then the challenge is that how much data can we download during that period of time? And sometimes we have clouds coming in between. We have images, maybe the ADCS, the attitude determination and control system of the satellite, did not stabilize the satellite well during the capturing of that image. So AI plays a huge role in terms of discarding those unneeded images or the images that doesn't satisfy the requirements, as well as compacting the images and putting them in a size that can be easily downloadable.
Interesting. So, Dr. Aquib, let's talk about future generation that want to go into space sector. You designed the MSc program and bachelor program at UAE University. What would you say to the people that would like to pursue this sector and who can be in space field?
That's question that is very close to my heart because we do know that space science and technology is one of the priority areas in the UAE, and also now you see it emerging in other countries, neighboring countries as well. So it's a good time to think about something that plugs into space science. But what I always tell youngsters that imagine space science or space technology as a very large scale and vast domain, which not just depends on one type of discipline or one skill or one area of expertise. Space science is one of the few areas that is at its heart interdisciplinary. So it means that whether you start off as an engineer, electrical engineer, mechanical engineer, aerospace, information technology expert, software developer, media person, whatever, even law. You have a thing called space law, right? So you can get into that. So what I would say is that if the knowledge of the outer space, knowledge of the universe excites you, then imagine what is it that it intrigues you the most. And then beyond that, every or most of the disciplines that you can think of would connect with space science in one way or the other. For example, if you're an undergrad and you are pursuing an undergraduate degree in electrical engineering, you need electrical systems on a satellite. If you're doing computer science or computer engineering, there is an onboard computer on the satellite which controls everything. If you are doing, let's say, mechanical engineering, the whole structure is a mechanical structure. And beyond that, there are fundamental STEM areas, science, science, mathematics, physics, whatnot. And all of that in one way or the other, you just need to identify where in that larger sphere of space science you see yourself. And my suggestion in the end would be just follow your heart on that and see what appeals to you.
All right. So many people can do space, not just physicists or engineers.
Absolutely. No. So it's not, again, this is breaking of a myth within this podcast. So doing space technology or space science does not only rely on having an engineering degree or a physics degree or, let's say, a space technology or aerospace degree, because the domain of space science and technology, it actually depends on a number of overlapping disciplines that would need to be explored, that would be deployed. For example, you cannot operate a satellite properly unless you are able to write some code to run the commands. You cannot power the satellite unless you have a solar array on board the satellite and batteries and the distribution system. So mark my words, take it from me that it's not just a handful of disciplines that would enable you to get into space science. If you are passionate about something, you can easily find a connection with what your current discipline is and where it can take you in terms of associating yourself with space exploration.
So I always like to relate space to automotive industry, because like in cars, we have electrical people, we have physicists who do aerodynamics, we have computers, everything. So everyone is needed in his own place.
Nobody is left out.
Yes,
when it comes to space exploration.
So space, Abdullah, in a sense, is it, let's say, a monopoly of a certain agency or center nation, or are they collaborations? So you are developing satellites. You either launched or launching one soon. Soon, yeah. So did you do it all by yourself, or did you do collaboration? How is the field look like?
Yeah, as Dr. Aquib and you've discussed, in terms of as space is open for all in terms of the entry to space, it's also open for all in terms of collaborations. We've seen a lot of successful collaborations happen between different agencies. We have NASA, ESA, the European Space Agency, and JAXA from Japan, as well as other entities. And of course, we have the UAE Space Agency that is always open to collaborations. Now, in terms of the satellite that I worked on, it was also a collaborative effort between
If it's not confidential, please go in details.
I guess I'll leave it out and then maybe announce it later, maybe on LinkedIn or whatever outlets we have. But to brief you more about it without mentioning any names, mainly it was a collaboration between different universities as under the umbrella of an entity with another research entity. So the nice thing is that we've worked with students. I started myself as a student on the project itself, and then became an engineer working on it, let's say full-time on the project itself, and trained several students alongside my colleagues. So the nice thing about it is that it was a collaborative effort. We've seen a lot of collaborative efforts between agencies, between universities, and sometimes between even companies and universities. And now we hope that we see more of that in the Middle East. However, we've seen a lot of amazing experiences around the world in terms of having startups spin-off from universities. They come up with a nice technology under the supervision of a professor, or even it's part of their master thesis or something, not as an external research. And then they develop the technology further, get enough funding, and then spin off as a startup. And we've seen some of them develop. One of them is Cube ADCS, one of the most famous CubeSat attitude determination and control system developers.
All right, so it's open for everyone, but if we mention names like Starlink, who wish to send like 30,000 satellites to the low Earth orbit, which is like around 500 kilometers away from Earth, would that be okay with us, people on Earth? Wouldn't that really affect us if we just look at the sky and we see constellation of those birds flying over us? Would it block the sky for us? And this is not just one company. We have Blue Origin. We have multiple Chinese entities already willing to do that as well. Shouldn't that be a bit more strict?
I guess it's fair enough to split this answer to two. Astronomy perspective, Dr. Aquib is an expert in that field, and maybe we'll talk from the concerns of engineers in that field.
That's fair, yeah, absolutely. I'm glad you said that. You know, it's a these topics are really broad, and I think to do justice to them, we have to look at from different angles. Picking up from your original question, Mohammed. So the first thing is, you know, I would say that's the most obvious thing, is that if you start to fill up any kind of three-dimensional space with stuff, there is a limit to it, right? Even if you go all the way up to the geosynchronous orbit, if you fill all the slots, then obviously it is going to run out of space. Will run out of space, right? So that's how I like to call it. So the first line of action is space traffic management. It needs to be managed in a way that it is coordinated. The entry and exit of satellite is coordinated, and there is, you know, some kind of a robust strategy that actually ensures that it is not too crowded, because, you know, it's not just about making some area very crowded, but it also starts to show up in your astronomical images, right? You can see these streaks of satellites which show up in your data, and that fundamentally affects the efficiency with which you can study faint objects in the universe, right? So from an astronomy standpoint, I'm not totally against all these constellations, because they are looking for providing free internet to the whole world and whatnot. But there has to be a managed entry and removal of dead satellites. And in addition to that, there will have to be protected, I would say, zones which are open for astronomers and researchers to study objects and events in the universe. So I think that is my take on this.
And I don't know if I'll be adding a lot, but of course, Dr. Aqib covered a lot of the aspects in terms of the astronomy and in terms of traffic management, especially. Maybe it provides satellite developers or let's say people who would love to be entrepreneurs in the field itself an opportunity and a challenge at the same time. The opportunity would be if those certain traffic management regulations or there are certain regulations that maybe satellite developers will be fined if their satellite stays into orbit more than the specified orbital time that they promised, or in case it doesn't deorbit on time, then it's an opportunity to actually clear that place or basically deorbit that satellite. So I know friends who are working on deorbiting systems, specific deorbiting systems. There are companies that would just take these satellites and capture them and throw them back to Earth. And in terms of a challenge, there is always the fear that our satellite might collide with another satellite. It has small occurrence, but at the same time, it's a concern that every satellite developer has. And then if we are talking about the ITU filing, which is the International Telecommunications Union filing, where we file our frequencies, and then there is a challenge where everyone will start coming to you, and then they say, oh, we filed this frequency, it might collide with ours. And these are some of the challenges.
And if I might add just one point in the end, there is an aspect of space environmentalism, right? So we know that the way things are going on, how the oceans are getting polluted or the atmosphere and the environment of the Earth is getting polluted, same could happen to space as well. So I think it should be sooner rather than later that we manage it properly, make sure that it is clean, and make sure that it is not overcrowded, that there would be a point that we will no longer be able to send low Earth orbit satellites. So I think it is kind of like striking a balance between responsibility, technological capabilities to do that properly, and to be, concerned about the environment in space as well.
All right. So today we were at the Salon event of TEDx. We had an enormous audience from various specialties and discipline and even ages. At the end, one of the boys came to me. He was like 12 years or 11 years old. So it was really interesting to see professionals, to see students, to see even the young audience. What are the important aspects of such event, Dr. Aqib, to you as an expert in academics and education? Where do you see the importance of such events for the popular?
I think this is again a very important point, and that is something that I emphasized on since the time I first came to the UAE. In order for people to have this drive to build a career in something or to contribute to a piece of knowledge, the first thing that you need is to make them aware of the significance of that discipline, right? If they don't get that awareness, that this level of awareness about the importance of that discipline, it is not going to inspire or motivate them enough to either contribute something or to at least be in a related field. The second thing is, general public needs to have an appreciation of what advanced sciences mean and what it has done for the humankind since the beginning of time, right? Since the beginning of time, speaking about history, going back to primitive times up till now, we have not only seen intellectual evolution, we have also seen technological evolution, which has made our lives easier. And that is only driven by the fact that we became aware of what it means to study the flight dynamics of a bird, right? Then it would eventually lead you to the development of an aircraft. What is the significance of mechanics, that led to the design and development of cars or vehicles and things like that? What is the significance of the physical quantities around us, temperature, humidity, all of that? And now we know how important it is for all of us to have that information. So I think, coming back to your point, these events should be more frequent, and the diversity of disciplines is the icing on the cake, starting from children all the way up to people from different areas, and also of different mindsets and thinking, because I think cross pollination between varying mindsets and varying background is what leads to a common understanding of reality, of our existence, and how it will lead the human race into the next 100 years or 200 years. Who knows? But I think this is what its important is.
So, Abdullah, similar question asked to you. We are like, maybe our generation didn't have such sharing knowledge as events we're having today, and even the internet. Yeah, we grow up with the internet, but probably not as the current generation. So to you who probably didn't have the chance to attend such events at as young age, what do you think of such sharing knowledge ideas, events?
I love the diversity of the events nowadays. So back in the days, if you're talking about tech, خلاص, you see everyone gathering around only tech. What's tech? You find all of the technologies in one place. However, nowadays we see such events. Today we had a talk about space, so it's a specific niche. And then there is the AI, and now even people are talking about specific areas in AI. Legal tech in AI, for example, or how to use generative AI. And then do you have, for example, specific events related to geospatial?
The bias in generative AI as well.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And that's a nice thing. This helps, let's say, the next generation identify the areas that they are interested in. So if I would give an advice for a youngster who's just entering university now, I'd say go to different events, hear from the experts in these events. Maybe if you go to 10 different events, you'll get better insights on these 10 different topics, and then decide which one would you like to pursue further. And I wish if we had the same opportunity back in the days, but nowadays I try to utilize that. If I find 2 events in the same day, I'll still go for them in order to connect with people. It's a great networking opportunity. As Dr. Aquib mentioned, the diversity of people coming, whether age diversity or even perspectives. People nowadays, especially in the UAE, we're so lucky to see people coming from all around the world. I've just met in the event a person who has a company in Switzerland. So he brings a different perspective and different mindset and technologies that would add to each one of us.
And I think one thing that Abdullah just mentioned is important to elaborate just a little bit more, that back when we were, school or college or university students, this is what is the phenomenon that is happening now, that the boundaries between disciplines are actually fading away because each discipline is now feeding the other, right? For example, anything that you do, if you don't have the skill to, let's say, cover it from a software standpoint or a hardware standpoint, if you're building technology, then it will not be a complete solution. So I think that what the current era is providing to youngsters is a kind of like a clearer picture of how things overlap, right? How things are crossing boundaries. So I think that we will no longer, the future ahead of us, we are no longer going to work in silos, in separate containers, so to say, right? Media sciences is crossing boundaries everywhere, right? So in that sense, I think the future of development, exploration, and scientific discovery lies in interdisciplinary cross-pollination.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Aquib. Thank you, Abdullah, for joining us today. And thank you for our listeners for being with us as well. And this is Beyond the Stage, where we are sharing ideas worth sharing. This is from TEDxJumeirah Beach Park. Thank you.